Welcome to the Al-Mahdi Institute podcast. We are very fortunate today to have with us Professor Seyed Amir Asghari from the University of Baylor. He's currently a research associate there and an expert in Sufism, mysticism, interfaith dialogue, and specifically in the mystical school of Najaf in the contemporary times, as well as the Maktab al-Tafkik. So, inshallah, we're hoping to have a very interesting conversation with him about his journey, his intellectual journey, and also some of his research. So, Sayyidina, assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you so much for joining us on this podcast.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Thank you.
Sayyidina, can you give us a journey, overview of your academic journey, as well as maybe some of the articles you've produced, conferences you've attended, and so on?
Okay. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure and honor to be with you this afternoon. And regarding my academic journey, from probably I would like to start from just mentioning that my BA was on law, Islamic law, and then I continued with an MA on comparative philosophy between Islamic and Western philosophy. And so then ended up in studying PhD at Indiana University, Bloomington, where my main, department, or like my major at this, as they say, my major was on Middle Eastern studies, and my minor department was religion. So a mixture between Middle Eastern studies and religion. But my main focus during my PhD studies was studying Islam, generally Islamic studies, but also focusing on Shi'ism as well. And within Shi'ism, I was kind of eager to study the intersection between philosophy, Sufism, and revelation. Especially studying how Shiites during the course of history and in their tradition, they looked at in rational or philosophical interpretation, or even Sufi or Irfani interpretation of revelation as well, and how they engaged themselves with those. Also, kind of the other groups of Shia scholars who were kind of opposite to the idea of kind of integration between Sufism, philosophy, and revelation. Currently, I am, as you mentioned, a postdoctoral research associate at Baylor University in Texas, in the Department of Religion. I have privilege to work with my colleagues and kind of contribute to a project studying natural law. In kind of making a bridge between different religions, and probably explaining how natural law can help us to make a connection between different religion in understanding each other, finding solution for global challenges. And this is not too far from the Sufism or mysticism that we discussed, or intellectual traditions within Islam, because we are trying to go deeper into the core of universals in religions, moral principles in religions, the things that are shared and common in religion, and then to see how those commonalities or universal concepts are helping us to understand each other better.
Okay, lots of interesting areas. I wanted to ask you, in terms of specifically when it comes to mysticism and your studies and teaching in mysticism, what kind of challenges do you think students and teachers in this field face?
Mm-hmm. Good question. Thank you so much. Regarding mysticism or Sufism, first of all, this is a kind of a part of Islamic studies under religious studies. I mean, the good point about it is that there are many. I mean, at least in English speaking areas, there are many books translated or kind of produced in explaining the many different Sufi traditions. And we do have a good body of literature available to many students, and uh, you know either or public readers. But maybe some challenges are that whether students sometimes they look at after graduation to see that if there's any opportunity to find a career to follow what they study. This is sometimes a challenge, but I mean, one probably can overcome these challenges with kind of putting this studies in relation or connection with other sort of thoughts or understandings, and providing a comparative studies. On the other hand, Sufism or spirituality is a need of human societies. We do need, I mean, it's a need of humanity, and studying Islamic mysticism as well can help communities with this need, which is very important and vital in any religion and any tradition. Um, there's one more thing to kind of consider in this regard. I mean, this is also a question that I have. We know that Sufism or Irfan uh, has two different dimensions. One is the kind of theoretical Sufism, which you can learn it through reading the books, having a like master or professor to teach you, or you study yourself. But there is another aspect of Sufism which is not through reading books. However, the reading books are helpful, but the problem is that the practical aspect of Sufism. Is it possible to say that I understand Sufism only by reading theoretical Sufism, or maybe to try to make it more understandable is that imagine if I'm studying chemistry, and you know that there are books written about chemistry, and then I attend university studying chemistry, but not attending the lab to practice chemistry. And so one question is that whether this kind of studies are kind of grabbing the sort of a complete or comprehensive understanding of what Sufism is or not. Anyway, like any other subject, but yes, understanding Islam and understanding Sufism and mysticism in Islam is a gateway to even interreligious understanding, being able to talk with other traditions. Spirituality is a common language between all religions and traditions, understandable to many, understandable, and a common ground, and a core of religion according to the Sufis. So that's make it important. That makes it to work, to be relevant to communities, to religions, and so that those are the positive points. But so as I mentioned, also there's some concern about whether these after graduation how you need you need to manage it. But there are certain ways to manage it. But also the other concern about the theoretical and practical aspects of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, because I think the practical aspect of it is something that is less regulated, something that is, you have to find in the, as they used to say, the corner streets,
Yes.
of seminaries and other places like that. That makes it a little more difficult sometimes to be able to combine both. There's no like clear way you can go and find a spiritual master, so on and so forth.
Sure.
Just drawing a little bit on, we'll come to discuss your PhD in just a few minutes, but also what I wanted to bring up here in terms of the difficulties is also the protagonists and antagonists of the Sufi path, right? Or of mysticism itself as an authentic area of Islamic studies. In your experience, have you found difficulties for teachers and students when it comes on to teaching something that is perhaps perceived by Muslims or clerics as something that is maybe not as authentically Islamic as, let's say, Hadith and Quran or anything like that? In more of your interactions with the Muslim community at large.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it has been kind of challenging because, as you mentioned, some people see mysticism or Sufism as not a part of Islam. But the point is that if we do have a literature like Quran, Revelation, and Hadith, and we study those, but the point is that Sufism is one of the outcomings of the Quran and Hadiths as well, if we only consider Quran and Hadith. I mean, where we take Quran and Hadith, Sufism from, at least theoretically, it's from Quran. Where we take this, Sufism, practical Sufism, the commands of doing this or avoiding that, it's from Quran and Hadith. It's not from somewhere else, at least in the Islamic sense of it. Yeah, there are challenges like that. But the answer to that challenge is that, I mean, this is not coming from somewhere else. It's coming from Quran itself. Like, imagine, Allama Tabatabai under the kind of his commentary on Quran, when he tries to think about, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu alaykum anfusakum. Upon you is your soul and self. So he tries to explain the Sufi path. He tries to say that your kind of path toward the real or God is through yourself. And that's a self-knowledge, which is, he's not bringing it from somewhere else. He's just explaining what Quran suggests. So, yeah, I mean, I guess there are answers to that concerns as well. And there are many hadiths or many traditions that are also leading toward kind of being spiritually, purifying yourself.
Yeah.
That's the core message of religion. Be true human, So one cannot escape those things. I mean, even if you ask about the zikr, Quran talks about zikr, Uzkurullah kasira. Mention remember God. Yeah, there's no limit on that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that brings us neatly onto your PhD thesis, where you discuss a very key debate between the Maktab Najaf and the Maktab Tafkid. So can you tell us a bit about these makatib and also your PhD research in general, how you went through and investigated these makatib, investigated the links between Sufism and the Maktab of Najaf?
Yeah.
And then the response from the Maktab of Tahqiq and all of that interesting scenario.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. And this is a broad question. Yes, I was interested, first of all, in, as I mentioned, in like intersection between philosophy, religion, and Sufism. And when I was like studying religion, I was noticing that there are a group of people that they engage with the religious text more deeply, and they use kind of their faculty of thinking. They engage more or they have a more complex contemplations toward what the meaning or the core meaning of a hadith or Quranic verse is. But so what I tried to do during my dissertation was that, so I was trying to kind of explain the interplay between Sufism, philosophy, and revelation, and within the School of Najaf, as you mentioned, and the opposition to this notion within the school of Tafkik or school of separation. Now, let me tell you. So, Maktab al-Najaf, there's a kind of what we know today. I mean, usually people refer to Maktab al-Najaf or the Sufi school of Najaf, or sometimes it is also called the Maktab al-Ma'rifatul Nafs, the school of self-knowledge. Is that there are a number of scholars within Shi'i tradition, Shi'i seminary, starting somehow between in the mid 19th century, that they are promoting the idea of, first of all, kind of self purification. You need to self purify in also when you study religion. Studying religion should involve you with the self purification. Otherwise, there's no difference between you as someone who studies religion with someone who studies law in in an academic setting. So, like you're a professor of law without being truly engaged with religion. So they started with this idea. I mean, they promoted the idea, and we know a number of like people, masters, scholars. They promoted the idea. So first of all, I mean, if you ask today, there's some names that are kind of commonly known. So like people like Sayyid Ali Shushtari, they know this figure as the great master of the Sufi school of Najaf. Usually they don't talk about who were his masters in Sufism or in Irfan. There's a story about a mysterious figure, Mullah Qalijullah, who once appeared to him and told him to migrate to Najaf. That's one story. And everyone usually most of the historians of this tariqah, they stop here. They don't say that what else, where it was coming from. This one idea. And then we should know that there was a very close relationship between Sayyid Ali Shushtari and Sheikh Murtala al-Ansari, who was the greatest faqih of his time and also of the present day. Sheikh al-Ansari is known as the very, one of the greatest fuqaha of the Shia tradition. Now, during that time, Sayyid Ali Shushtari becomes like a master or professor of Sheikh al-Azam al-Ansari in Irfan. They both attend their own classes, and so they had a very close relationship. The second generation after Sayyid Ali Shishtari becomes Mullah Hossein Ghali Shabandi. He is one of the second master in this school. He also has been a student of Mullah Ali Sabzawari. Sabzawari is very well known in Islamic philosophy and mysticism as well. And Sabzawari, by the way, is a member of Zahabiyya, Tariqa, Zahabiyya order within the Shia tradition. At least he had a master of Zahabiyya order. So this Mullah Hossein Ghali Shamandi is one of the greatest after his master, greatest ulama of this Maktab al-Najaf, who they say that, kind of had about 300 disciples in Irfan. After him, there's another class. So 2 or 3 names are well known. One is Mirza Jawad Agha Maliki Tabrizi, Sayyid Ahmad Karbalawi, or Sheikh Muhammad Bahari. Sheikh Muhammad Bahari was kind of known as Hakim Ashab, the wise man of, or the sage of the companions of Shabandi. And also Mullah Ahmad, Sayyid Ahmad Karbalawi, he was what we have from him, except for the mystical education and teaching, is kind of correspondences between him and Kompani, another philosopher of his time, where they are kind of engaged in correspondences regarding the oneness of being, the Wahdatul Wujud. And these two people are discussing this from the philosophical and mystical and a funny point of view, which also kind of, I think that played an important role. in the later generations, when other masters also wrote commentaries on the via discussions, and it goes on. Now, after that generation, we have Sayyid Ali Qazi, maybe very better known, more closer to our time. Sayyid Ali Qazi also produced a number of disciples. Among very well known among them is Allama Tabatabai. Allama Tabatabai is the author of Al-Mizan fi Tafsir al-Quran. His methodology in tafsir, or methodology in commentary, is based on Tafsir al-Quran bil Quran. Uh, he explains verses by another verses, and also he uses the kind of philosophical rational understanding and argumentation with understanding and the verses of Quran. But so now we do have this school as Maktab al-Najaf, very well known, like Allama Tabatabai, and his disciples are continues. The school is not stopped. So what they say, they synthesize between philosophy, Sufism, and revelation. What they say that these three passes are kind of aiming one reality with different languages, and they are connected, interconnected, and to each other. So it is not against religion or message of religion if we follow a mystical path. Because we also, through this our mystical path, also, or revelational intuition, also leads us to the realities that Quran orders us to follow. Now, while there is, according to them, while there is a harmony between, rational, philosophical, and mystical, and revelation, the opposite of the school is Maktab al-Tarhih, or Maktab al-Separation, the school of separation, which emphasizes on the fact, and they promotes the idea and states that there is absolutely no connection between philosophical understanding and exploring the being and world and universe with what Revelation teaches us. There is no absolute relationship between Sufism with the understanding, but with the teachings of Quran. First of all, philosophy is a strange knowledge coming from Greek philosophy, and Greek philosophy is a like human science rather than revelation, which is the divine knowledge or divine science or divine theology, they call it. So what's the relationship between the divine relation of divine theology with the human theology? These are all human theologies, and they are kind of not validated, are not authentic. What they say that we should clear our system of education, especially seminary, from these knowledges, especially Mirza Mahdi Isfahi, the founder of this school, who amazingly was a student of a Karbalawi and Bahari from this school. He, first started with this school, but according to a dream that he saw, he's kind of presenting the idea that I saw the 12th Imam in my dream, and he told me that those who get knowledge from any other resources except us, their action is like denying us. However, many others, they kind of doubt about the originality or of this message. But anyway, so the idea is that you cannot use your intellect, understanding, philosophy, even intuition in kind of explaining what Quran says, or these are two separate. And then, according to Islamic Quran, as their Islam, the revelation is there in order to destroy all those knowledges by human. All human knowledges must be this. By human knowledge, he just means that philosophy. It's a reason. He doesn't go after sciences, math, and he even don't care about the ideas of during his time that we had the idea of evolution, for instance. He doesn't care. I mean, he doesn't answer to those as far as I noticed. But yeah, this opposition played an important role since 100 years ago within the Shia seminary and then Shia community as well. And so there were and there are still intense,
Yeah.
kind of discourses, conversations,
Yeah.
uh, regarding each school tries to argue for their own position and uh, kind of like counter arguments against the other ones. Alama Tabatabai himself, he also contributed to these discussions, especially in his part of it in his commentary to Bahar al-Anwar, the Shi Hadith collections, which is not one of the authentic ones, but uh, when he especially writes commentary on Bahar al-Anwar, um, so because he criticizes the understanding of Allama Majlisi, another kind of, the Hadisi uh, Adam or a scholar of 16th, 17th century Shias. The followers of Maktab Tafkik or School of Separation, they were angry why he is criticizing Majlisi,
Yeah.
and Tabatabai was telling that, understanding the true sense of hadith is more important than,
Personalities.
yeah, personalities. And then he, by the way, I mean, they stopped him, they stopped the publication of his commentary on Bahar al-Anwar. I mean, so these forces existed within the Shia seminary.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned, it's still going on. One of the, I don't know if I'll need to go on, but one of the major, problems here is the discussion about the human soul.
Yeah.
And what's the role of human soul in knowing God? I mean, those who the Maktab Najaf, the School of Najaf, emphasizes on self-knowledge as a gate to the knowledge of God based on at least one of the, uh, prophetic tradition, which he says that if you know yourself, you know your God. And while the other school also is opposing this, saying that there's no similarity and no connection between the human soul with, divine.
So you can't use the soul to understand.
Yes, yes, yes.
I mean, the one thing that really strikes me is that Mirza Mehdi Isfahani's impetus for beginning this trend of the Maktab of Tafkik is a dream. I mean, that itself is a type of mystical experience. And then now we have this whole field opening up into the philosophy of mysticism, trying to understand what kind of dreams can you rely on, what kind of dreams can't you rely on. The fact that a dream is a subjective proof and not really an objective one, and so on and so forth. So it's really interesting to see.
Sure.
And also the connections, like you say, between Mirza Isfahani and then students of Ali Shishtari, Ahmed Karbala'i, and the Bahari.
Yeah.
And then how that sometimes reconnects. So you have students of Mirza Mehdi Isfahani again coming into the more, if you like, jurisprudential centric circles.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, something else that's interesting is this use of terminology. So, we have Sufism, we have Irfan, we have Shi'ism. And how do they connect together? So, someone like the Maktab of Tafkik is saying, well, Sufism and Irfan, that's something else. And then you have Shi'ism, which is Quran and Hadith. Then you have early, interpreters of Ibn Arabi, like Seyed Haydar Amali, who want to say Sufism, Shi'ism, and at that time, not really a discussion of Irfan. They're one thing, right? And then you have this separation between Sufism and Irfan. So you see, for example, Ayatollah Mutahari tries to, frame this such that Sufism is something to do with culture and to do with, certain practices that you can't find in the tradition, and that's not okay. And then you have Irfan, which is more interested in, it's knowledge of God and knowledge of the self, and that is something that we really want to focus on. Then you have others coming and saying, well, this is politics because it's a political sphere. So, I see you use Sufism and Irfan quite synonymously. So I wanted to just get your thoughts on this. What do these terms or are they plastic terms? Like, can you stretch them to mean different things? Or do we say Irfan is Sufism, or do we say what's the relationship between Irfan, Sufism, and Shi'ism? That's my question.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes, very interesting question. We know that there are scholars there are scholars who wrote about the very idea of the relationship between Sufism and Shiism. As you mentioned, Sayyid Haydar al-Moli, who was kind of promoting the idea of that the real Shiites is the real Sufi and the real Sufi is the real Shiites, and up to the Maktab Najaf, the Sufi School of Najaf, Qazi Seyed Ali Qazi mentions that the best man is the one who is both faqih and Sufi. So he's a jurist and as well as Sufi. So now the question is that what are the relationship between these two? At least those who are, adherents of Sufi and followers of the Sufi tradition, they say that, look, there are concepts which are fundamental to Shiism, and those ideas are also fundamental to Sufism. One of them is like the idea of wilaya. So the guardianship of Allah and then guardianship of Prophet and Imams, and this notion of the connection between you and Wali, and then that's probably kind of make you closer to God. So we have the idea of the friends of God or Waliullah as well. So one of the notions is the wilaya that plays important role both in Shiism and Sufism. The other idea, which is kind of promoted in Sufism, is that the insan al-kamil, perfect man. And then you have the figure of a perfect man within the Shiism as presented as imams. I mean, prophet, absolutely, and imams as his successors. So this is another idea very common between them. I guess another idea common between Shiism and Sufism, except for Wilaya or Insan al-Kamil, the idea of Qutb as well, which is kind of like written in Insan al-Kamil, but Qutb as someone who is kind of plays a mediator role between you and God, as well in Shiism in the role of Imam. And also that in Shia tradition, you read that Imam is also called the Qutb of the time, the pole of his time. So, except for this, there are many other things. One of the other common things is the love of Ahlul Bayt, the love of household of a prophet, which is common between Sufism and Shiism. That this is absolutely one of the main, key essentials and key points in Sufism. Another important issue here, I guess, is the lineage. Sufism, as an order, all the different Sufi orders, they should legitimize themselves. And the way of legitimization goes through finding a lineage, a chain from them to a source of irfan, which is a wali. And according to 99% of Sufi holders, those walis are imams. So many Sufi tradition, they want to say that, yes, we from like our master to previous master up to Ali ibn Abi Talib and then to Prophet or other imams like Imam Rida of the 8th Shiite Imam as well. So they go back to the same sources. Now, someone may say that, oh no, Sufis are there in order to, deviate people from paying attention to imams. I haven't seen myself a Sufi text in which, they invite people to forget imams and, think about the master. But usually the Sufi masters are uh, kind of a teacher to lead you toward the real, not to themselves.
Yeah.
The idea of the self in Sufism, inviting to me, is the most wrong idea within destructive. Yeah, destructive within the Sufis. So those are the things that are kind of help us to think about the interconnections or connection between Sufism and Shi'ism. Many hadiths or many sayings of Imams also sort of helpful to understand this. Oppositions, they also mention a number of hadiths that are like kind of criticizing Sufis. Now, there's one problem. One, the authenticity of those hadiths, many doubt about it, and many discussed in their academic writings regarding those hadiths. One, the second thing is that if you compare those hadiths in which Sufis are criticized, you can find also hadiths that fuqahas are criticized. I mean, you cannot say that, the only people on the planet who were criticized were Sufis. No, also fuqahas. So what does it mean? It means that they criticize a faqih or a jurist who is not in accordance to 1, 2, 3. Or they also criticize someone who says that I'm Sufi and he is not in accordance to 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
The categories, or, Now, the idea of Sufism and Shi'ism and Irfan. We know that during the Safavid era, I mean, Safavid started with Sufism, with the idea of tasawwuf or Irfan. Now, like from the mid Safavid later, we have a kind of expanding the presence of jurist mindset in the Salafite and in the Safavid kingdom, which presents the idea of the more kind of diverting community or king toward more fiqh understanding of religion. And then this results in opposing Sufis. Sufism becomes more negative concept in that. And especially because those fuqaha were head of the schools or were jurists. So in their schools also kind of criticizing the Sufism. By the way, I mean, they were not 100% wrong, because there were a kind of Sufism that's also Mullah Sadra criticizes them, like in Kasral and Snam al-Jahaniyyah. He talks about the ignorant Sufis, those who were not real Sufis, but they claimed they were Sufism. And, kind of buying a kind of prestigious, social prestigious for themselves or whatever. But those people like Mullah Sadra, who were kind of had tendencies towards Sufism, they used the term Irfan instead of Sufism to probably safeguard themselves from the attacks by those other ulamas. However, they criticized those ulamas, but they also criticized the Sufis, those Sufis who were not, in fact, following the path, but rather inviting themselves. So in that sense, historical, and for like great Sufis in the tradition, in Islamic tradition, the term Sufism is nothing except to self-purification, gaining the knowledge of God, understanding divine, purifying yourself, to elevating or transcending your soul from, animal soul to intellectual soul to spirituality. So if that is Sufism, also Irfan is that same thing. But, because of the kind of sensitivity of the term Sufism and its negative connotations, so some of the ulama, they use the term irfan instead of Sufism. But I guess in kind of classical reading, there's not such a thing between. I mean, irfan is not mentioned instead of Sufism. The only, I mean, mostly in the Shiite communities, the term is used, but even in the greater Islamic area, I mean, the term Sufism is still meaning the same thing as in the classic books.
Yeah. I remember reading once a entry from William Chittick on Sufism, and he himself also said it's very difficult to define this term.
Yeah.
It covers so many different aspects, trends, cultures, because it's about the spiritual aspect of Islam, and Islam, some people argue, is inherently spiritual. Which kind of leads me on to the next question that I have as well about this relationship between fiqh and Sufism, or Irfan mysticism, because what we find in our history is that these two groups have generally been at loggerheads. If you look at philosophical and mystical writings, they're always claiming the fuqaha have not understood religion. They're just satisfied with the surface. This is the introductory steps. It's not really getting on to what religion is about. And then conversely, you'll find fuqaha saying, the basis of mysticism is, not okay, or some of the practices of Sufis and mystics are not okay, and so on and so forth. But then you find this kind of softening in the middle sphere, where fuqaha then start talking about fiqh al-asghar and fiqh al-akbar. So there's fiqh, which is the boundary, but you should be also doing your supererogatory prayers. You should have sincerity. You should have spirituality. And then also from the other side as well, you find Sufis who say that you must practice the outward of religion, because the tariqah is only possible with the sharia. You need to have both. So now, what do we see between these two groups, fuqaha and mystics, and how they're trying to reconcile both sides, if you like, almost the outward and the inward, not to move not in the inward, not to be too much in the outward, and at the same time have them as distinct groups.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Big question. Well, I think that there must be, and there is, a misunderstanding between some of the people. Some, they just very easily wrote against Sufism without truly understanding what Sufism is, or also vice versa. Now, I mean, among the people who were like promoting Sufism but not dive deep into the real Sufism or real religion, they may also, talk that fuqaha or jurists don't understand things. But nevertheless, I would like to mention two things in response to this question. One is, as you mentioned, the fiqh asghar and fiqh akbar, but the area of introductory jurisprudence, and looking at it as something that, yes, when you enter religion, you study religion, there are commands, there are prohibitions. You study those. Okay. But you're not only study those, you have to practice those. And then you are not only practicing those for themselves, you have another goal, which is reaching to somewhere or something. And that somewhere or something, a goal, is the core of religion, or the goal of religion. So if we only understand and study fiqh without practicing it, without also purifying ourselves, our heart, our soul, then, as I mentioned in the previous question, you study law, and sometimes you don't care about law. You do whatever you want, but you use law in court. Whenever it helps you to gain money or whatever. But now, so one of the messages that those pro-Sufis or pro-Irfan that were criticizing the seminary was that here, a seminary should be a place of gaining spirituality. Studying fiqh, or only jurisprudence is not helping our students to gain that spirituality. They must engage into a spirituality, based on the way of spirituality. I mean, spirituality, you need to engage into spirituality, but you need to have a master of the spirituality as well. I mean, you cannot imagine. I mean, you cannot learn mathematics based on your own learning. You may learn something, but you don't get the mastery of this. So one thing is that going from the lesser fiqh or fiqh asghar into greater fiqh or greater understanding. Like the other ideas are like in Islam, the smaller or lesser jihad to the greater jihad, which is the fighting with your soul and purifying it. Now, to prove to somehow kind of using the ideas of Sheikh Muhammad Bahari in his book Tazkiratul Muttaqin and answering and clarifying this position. So when he talks about this issue with his counterparts, with those who are in the seminary, he uses a good example, and I want to use that one too. He says that, so we do study fiqh, as I mentioned, but this fiqh is an introduction. Introduction to what? To practice. And then you should have in mind the idea of the Sharia, Tariqa, and Haqiqa and Sufism, and the way that he kind of puts the other phrases in order to explain that, but in a language understandable to fuqaha or ulama. Says that fiqh is the introduction to practice, but you don't do practice only for practice. You do practice for what he says. The practice is the introduction to akhlaq, to ethics. And you need to gain ethics. And then you have a good behavior or be good behave. And then this goodness, what is this goodness also, leading you toward what? What's the aim of this goodness being good? He says that the aim of this akhlaq is tawheed. Or the oneness of God, the unity of God, understanding God, knowing God, being involved in God, sort of making your akhlaq more, divine. Yes, God-like akhlaq. تخلقوا بأخلاق الله كونوا ربانيين, become God-like. So he says that he puts in the phrases that understandable through fuqaha as well, and then kind of removes those negative connotation from this Sufi terminology that they were kind of sensitive toward. And he explains it. So the relationship between Sufism and fiqh is that without fiqh, without the commands of Sharia, without the commands of God, without the prohibitions, there's no Sufism. I mean, you cannot follow the path, cannot walk through the path without having like those, orders or prohibitions, considering those. Because religion says that, Quran says that revelation or religion is in accordance to your fitra. The orders of revelation is there in order to return you back to your real nature, your real being, the fitra or nature that God created you based upon that. And that's if you follow this, you get to that light. But there must be an awareness, a self-awareness. There must be a kind of looking for a goal that I'm trying to reach to. I'm not doing the prayer, just I did this, and there's nothing. There's no inner dimension to this prayer. Sufism or Irfan is trying to emphasize that there is an inner dimension to that outward practice. If you follow that, you will reach to a goal, an aim, the goal of your life, in fact. So you need to get that sense, that real inner nature of yourself that connects you to God. And putting into Confucianism terms, Mencius, the second teacher in Confucianism, says that the great learning is to find the lost heart. So you have a lost heart, and you do all of these things in order to find that lost heart. And I understand this also on the term that Quran uses for the term wisdom. Wisdom, which is, prophets are described in the Quran, who are the teaching you the book and the wisdom. We know about the book a lot,
Yeah.
but we don't know about the wisdom. So where's that wisdom? What are those wisdom? So the wisdom is the internal aspect of religion, the deeper meaning of it, the goal of it, and then finding it according to prophetic tradition in Islam is that also a duty of a believer. A prophet says that the wisdom is the lost camel of a believer. So you need to find that lost camel in order to go through the path. So yes, they are interconnected. They need each other, but one needs not to stop in just simply practicing, and there's no changing up. We need those practices in order to change ourselves. Otherwise, we are just doing nothing. Quran mentions this. Yes, you do zikr, but your tongue makes the zikr or remembrance, but the heart is asleep. So when you need to awaken the heart, and that's the thing that Irfan emphasized on.
Yeah. Again, I think that leads me on to probably my final question. I'd love to speak and talk to you a lot more about these issues, but I think just drawing together some of the things you've been talking about just in the last question, what about the practical methods? You have a paper on hudur and sakina, but also in terms of the Maktab Najaf, they had specific practices. For example, contemplating on the Risala Nuriya Wahdat, and many other things like taking 40 days out, the issues of having the relationship between the master and the student. So there's many, many things to talk about. So yeah, just to ask you here about the now lived tradition, what you will find in that side street in Najaf or in Qum, where people don't usually have access to. What kind of things are people doing? And what are the practices that for us here in the West, maybe we're very far away from those side streets. What kind of practices are useful for us in our modern day-to-day life? Things like hudur, that we can take away with us just as the final takeaway from our session.
Oh, thank you. Well, what I noticed in the writings of those masters, they mentioned, first of all, if we need to have an understanding of who am I. This is a one core question within philosophy and Sufism or reforms or religion. Who am I? Why I am here rather than not being here? Why I'm created? What's the goal of my creation? If we find a higher, goal of for our beings, and then we should find a path to walk toward that goal. So, basically, we need to reach to that goal through purifying ourselves. Because usually when we are in a material world, we have many distractions. Whether those are, doing sins, or even not only not doing sins, but being engaged in the many things that are not helpful to reach to their own destination. Yeah. Shams Tabrizi talks about a story of a king sending someone to a city to go and get take this letter to the king and get the answer from king and return to me. And the guy who goes to that city does many other things and comes back while he forgot about the letter itself. And he comes back to the king. King says that, okay, did you go? He said, yes, I went there. And it says that, okay, where's the answer of the king? He says, oh, I forgot about that. He says, that's okay, but I sent you there in order to do this job and this mission. But the guy says that, well, I did a lot of things. I went there, I was there. Says, I mean, you did those, but you didn't do your mission. Now, the point is that they say that, first of all, understanding that, who am I? Then what I need to do? And then purify yourself of the past. Tawbah, repentance, or if I did right thing. So, because if you want to follow this path, you need to be at least, kind of pure. And then, so now they start with orders of, first of all, paying attention to your daily prayers. But the daily prayers are this one important thing. Many of us, we do pray. Many people, they pray. Many people attend mosque. Many people attend church. But this revelation means that, well, your heart needs to be alive and aware when you present, when you, go to those places, when you pray your salat or namaz. If you don't have, your heart presence in your prayer, then you're not praying. So that one thing, that the awareness, be careful, but understand that there's nowhere that there's no God. I mean, God is not present there. So the presence of God, understanding the presence of God in every moment in you. I mean, in the idea of self-knowledge is that your inner, knowing yourself as leading you toward leading your Lord, is kind of a probably helpful here to understand this. But in practical way, they start with zikr. Except, I mean, zikr, Quran, prayer is zikr, reading Quran is zikr, but mentioning God's name, there are very common of them, like in Islamic terms, salawat, or la ilaha illallah, or Allah Akbar, or many other zikrs, even though many of them in Quran, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum. But except for zikr, I mean, zikr is there to what? You've mentioned you repeat zikr, but in order to have your heart awaken, there must be the light. You are trying a lot, for instance, in zikr, in order to awaken your heart, and the awakening of your heart changes your being from someone who is uh, externally praise or externally repeat the zikr into someone who is internally repeat the zikr, and the heart is kind of starting, his own zikr, and then the heart is awakened with zikr, and heart goes on whether you are doing externally or not. Zikr is one point, and then the second thing is that the idea of tafakkur, fikr, contemplation. We may think about, Islamic for religious practices like namaz or salat or prayers, but we haven't probably paid enough attention to one other fact, that contemplation is also another worship, an act of worship in Islam. Prophetic tradition says that 1 hour of contemplation is better than 70 years of prayers. The reason is that you need to awaken your heart. And then, so these contemplations, how they explain it, is a kind of a vehicle toward understanding ourselves, toward awakening ourselves, toward being kind of aware of how we do what we do, how do we react, or how do we connect to others, what is our place in the universe, what is our place or relationship with the universe and with God, and how to put ourselves in a harmonious way between this all the universes and the divine. One like introductory level of thinking is think about your death. So you need to, they emphasize that the very first steps of thinking is think about your death. Think that you're dead now. What is your situation? Is there anything that you think you think about changing it or not? And so, what is the meaning of the uh, what I mean, what kind of feeling you may have if you find that you are dead, and then how you encounter your God in that sense. So tafakkur starts from the very basic question regarding death. I mean, they used to sit, contemplate, likely prayer, but every day and the same time in a kind of quiet place. Only you, no distraction to think about this. And then it goes up from, thinking, the contemplation, from thinking about your death into contemplation to Tawheed, which is the much more higher, much more higher stages of tafakkur or fikr. So all those things are there in order to kind of change us, transfer us, transcend us. There's this prophecy hadith which says that die before others come to before we
Die before you die, is that the one?
yeah exactly die before you mutu qabla an tamutu. Die before you die. So and also calculate or kind of qabla an tahasabu. So you need to think about yourself, what you did, what are you doing before they are in the day of judgment. They ask you or they show you what you did, and then to be vigilant and aware of what we do. In the upper stages, I guess they say that they're muraqabah nafs, or someone who is the Amir of his breath also. So
present even with your own breath and watching over that.
Yes, exactly. So I mean, it goes on, and which there's no end. But pray. I mean, even in Shia tradition, you are correct terms. You do have prayers or du'as. Kind of in which there are high stages of self-awareness and connection with God is mentioned as well. And those are there in order to, transcend us and, kind of put us in a way back to God, or the way that we come down, they say, from the arc of descent, and then it helps us in the arc of ascend to God, back to God.
Okay. Yes, that's all. Sure. Thank you so much for that very beneficial discussion.
So much.
Inshallah. I hope all the listeners have benefited as well. And we look forward to the next AMI podcast. Thank you so much.